From the Joy News Center. This is News at 8.
Welcome to the Bulletin. Joy News Prime Time. Coming up, NPP General Secretary cited for contemptuous remarks about election petition urges supporters to remain calm even as he appears tomorrow. Meanwhile, Party General Secretaries rejects #2 ranking on Corruption Perception Index, insisting it undermines confidence. Independent broadcasters vow to sanction members who violate their ethics by allowing hate speech and insults. Police intensify presence in Central Region town where clashes with townsfolk over illegal mining led to a jailbreak and the death of 2 persons. And district assemblies have been challenged to ensure their communities have something to show for the resources that are exploited. We also have sports, showbiz, business, and international news all coming up.
News at 8 with Israel Lai.
In our very first story, NPP General Secretary Kojo Usue-Free, perhaps one of the Supreme Court's most wanted, has asked sympathizers of the New Patriotic Party to remain calm and not to do anything that would disturb the peace of the country. The NPP scribe, also known as Sir John, is due to appear before the Supreme Court tomorrow for comment he made about the justices hearing the election petition. He spoke to the media at a news conference called by general secretaries of political parties.
The general secretaries of the various political parties had called the news conference to protest portions of the Ghana Integrity Initiative report. 3 of the 4 main parties who had sponsored the event were present, leaving most people wondering the whereabouts of the NPP general secretary. When he eventually arrived, Sir John, as he is popularly known, stole the moment and managed to get all the cameras focusing on him. So much so that his colleagues couldn't help bask in his glory. 30 minutes into the news conference, and the Sir John frenzy would not die down until he decided he had to leave to see his lawyers ahead of his appearance before the Supreme Court justices tomorrow, including its president, Justice Atuguba. Fully aware of the mountain he had to climb, his colleagues offered some solidarity and wished him well.
Let me say, I have heard attempts to say that
the journalists that had gathered pursued him momentarily, forgetting the main reason they were there.
I don't know what words you are talking about. Let us wait and hear what the Supreme Court says. All right, thank you very much.
After some persuasion, Sir John obliged.
Like I've said, the battle is still the Lord's. We have left everything to God and to their lordships. I think that their lordships will look at the issues carefully and then to judge appropriately. I respect their lordships. I respect that they will continue to do justice to whatever case that is before them. I also agree with their lordship that nobody is above the laws in this country, and therefore, whether it is Sir John or whoever it is, if you offend the law, their lordships have the right to invite you, as they've done. So let us wait and see what their lordships say tomorrow. I'm pretty confident that justice shall be done tomorrow.
He used the opportunity to urge the party faithfuls to remain calm.
And so I ask all party members and supporters to remain calm and not to do anything untoward. I am not above the law, and I believe that nobody in this country is above the law. And so if I'm invited, it doesn't call for any confusion in this country. It doesn't call for any supporter to take the laws into their hands and to misbehave. We are a party of law and order, and that is why we went to the Supreme Court, with our case. And so I hope that members of the New Patriotic Party and all other, persons who are keeping vigil, for me in various, towns and cities will continue to do so.
And we'll be bringing you an update on the vigil being held somewhere in Kumasi for Sir John. But in other news, the Ghana Independent Broadcasters Association says it will sanction media houses that allow politicians to use their platforms to propagate hate speech or insults. GIBA's Vice President Akwesi Agyeman said members must adhere to the Code of Conduct and perform their duties with professionalism.
At a zonal workshop on enforcement of the GIBA Code of Conduct, Vice President Akwesi Agyeman said the group demands from members high levels of professionalism with transparency and non-discrimination. He also emphasized the need to evict notorious offending panelists from live programs to serve as a deterrent to others to promote fairness and integrity in the media. He said GIBA recognizes the importance of the forthcoming Supreme Court verdict and are determined to sensitize the public that no matter the verdict, it is a victory for Ghana.
It's a process. I mean, we have a process of written warnings. We have a process of fines before expulsion from the association. But our association is still guided by the laws of the land. And so if you do something that is treasonable, I think the laws of the land will deal with that person.
Representative of the National Media Commission, Deputy Executive Secretary Alexander Bannerman, and the National Commission for Civic Education Chairperson Charlotte Osei said objectivity and balance of the media is critical to Ghanaian society.
Normally what happens in most cases, they move in before coming to the National Media Commission. And the issues are blown out of proportion. But the moment they come back, you see the loopholes. So we have told the police that in any situation, it's the National Media Commission that they have to come to.
Of research we did at the NCC last year, something that struck me, one of them was where people said they thought the media was too powerful. And I thought that for a nation that had come through so many decades of military dictatorship, and a nation that we were trying to nurture our democracy, you need a strong, vibrant, independent media. And when the citizens whom the media exists to serve start saying that they think the media is too powerful, then I think the media needs to start being careful as to how they're exercising the power that they have.
Meanwhile, the National Media Commission has met the Executive Council of the Ghana Independent Broadcasters Association and its affiliated members to sensitize them on sanitizing the airwaves to make sure nothing untoward is done to disturb the peace during and after the election petition verdict in a few weeks.
The meeting, a follow-up to another between the NMC and various stakeholders, including the National Communication Authority and the Ghana Police Service, is in anticipation of the final verdict in the election petition hearing. Though it wasn't open to the media, the General Secretary of GIBA, Gerald Ankra, spoke briefly about the purpose of the gathering.
Today's meeting is about the National Media Commission meeting affiliated bodies under it, so that even prior to the verdict of the Supreme Court, we will sanitize the airwaves and make sure we don't put things untoward, also we keep one country.
President of GIBA, Chief Paul Crystal Draco, assured of collaboration with all the parties to achieve peace.
We are all here for the good of the state, the peace that we all call for. And we will do our best for our country, collaborating with you to make sure the best come to our country. We are the messengers, and we will carry the messages as we are required to do, but doing it very well, as we ourselves wish to do as professionals.
Chairman of the National Media Commission, Cabral Blair Mehe, had some points which he believes is very important in keeping the peace.
One, I believe that there should be strict adherence to guidelines, code of ethics, code of conduct of professional bodies and the NMC. Two, there should be effective editing and gatekeeping. Three, there should be cross-checking and verification of news items or developments. Four, and I'm sure this is a subject that Nana likes, there should be reduction of tension through non-conflictual paneling. That is, you don't just create panels that have the cease of promoting conflict. And then 5, prevention of politicians from using media platforms to create tension.
For Joy News, Marian Toure reporting.
The President has expressed satisfaction with security arrangements put in place to avert any trouble before, during and after the Supreme Court ruling on the election petition. According to Deputy Information Minister Felix Kwakye, President Mahama has been following keenly all the measures and is certain Ghana will remain peaceful after the verdict. Felix Kwakye was speaking at the daily media briefing at the Flagstaff House.
Briefing. His Excellency the President, who is also the Commander-in-Chief of the Ghana Armed Forces, has had the opportunity to review the various security arrangements that have been put in place by the security agencies of this country in order to ensure the maintenance of law and order before, during and after the verdict of the Supreme Court. His Excellency is satisfied with the arrangements so far and is impressed with the high morale and the state of preparedness of our men and women in uniform. His Excellency is confident that we would rise to the occasion once more, as we have done over the last 2 decades or so.
We're taking a break, but we have more stories coming up. Don't go away. The Ghana Police Service has intensified its presence at Twifo Praso in the central region to ensure law and order after recent clashes there believed to have claimed 2 lives. The townsfolk on Sunday clashed with the police in a clampdown on illegal mining.
A mob attacked the police station in Praso, vandalizing everything they laid their hands on, accusing the police of intentionally shooting the 2, resulting in their deaths. Officers at the station during the attack had to flee for their lives. Joy News learned some prisoners in the police cells also took to their heels as the angry mob broke the cell locks to free them. It took police reinforcement from Cape Coast to bring the situation under control. Director of Police Operations, COP John Kudalo, in an address to officers and men in the area, advised them to show professionalism in their work and be firm but fair on the ground.
It is a time for you to practice them and do that in this letter and spirit. We would not like to hear any casualties again. And you know when to use the weapons when your life is in peril. But now say that there's law and order. So let's use the public management equipments only now to make sure that we enforce and keep the peace. And I'm sure within the next 48 hours, peace will be fully maintained, and you go back and continue with your standby duties and training as we stand by for more serious assignments.
The paramount chief of Twifo Mampong, Nana Osiadia Yokwesi Kenim, urged the people to keep calm and not take the law into their own hands. Georgina Apia filed this report from the Central Region.
Now, the Northern Electricity Distribution Company is taking steps to significantly improve supply in the Upper East region. Finance and Commercial Director of NETCO, Francis Kusi, made this known at a stakeholders meeting in Bogatanga on Tuesday. Upper East Regional Correspondent Albert Sori has more.
The stakeholders meeting under the theme Power Distribution in the North, the Past, Present and the Future brought together representatives and heads of various stakeholder institutions and organizations to deliberate on issues bordering suppliers and consumers of electricity. The Finance and Commercial Director of NETCO, Francis Kusi, made a presentation on what the past and present situation is as far as electricity supply in the Upper East region is concerned. He said the future looks bright for consumers in the region.
I intended to become the leading electricity distribution company. We want to take ECG out and show them that we can deliver and deliver good. To do that, we have construction of 834.5 and 11.5 kV substations, and we have geographic information systems that will be able to track our customers, address their problems as and when they become imminent.
Some consumers had the opportunity to express their grievances about the supply of electricity, to which the Northern Area Manager of NEDCO, Bukwari Danladi, responded to.
The cost of the prepaid meters, the reason why we are not able to give every single person a meter, and we are putting people on, we are combining customers for meters, is because the cost of the meter is so high that some people's consumption for up to 6 months will not even be anywhere near to the meter. Sometimes 3 to 4 years consumption will not be anywhere near the cost of the meter. We need to put in investment to get these meters. So the operational cost is not that low. The vehicles, the transportation, everything that we do, I want to say that it is investment.
Deputy Apai's Regional Minister, who chaired the meeting, gave some clarifications about government's earlier directive for some institutions to be exempted from the mass prepaid metering system.
We in the RCC were affected very well. In fact, they started implementing, and even to the hospitals they implemented. And I remember the very first day that came out was from Bogu, where it affected the theater of the hospital or something. Yes. And so we did a letter to Accra asking that there was a need for the Minister of Energy to look at this again. Not long after that, we got the directive that not only should this apply to the Minister of Health or the hospitals, but also to educational institutions. Because ideally, we think that the lights cannot go off in the educational institutions, especially the co-educational institutions.
Albert Sori's report from the Upper East region.
District assemblies have been challenged to ensure the exploitation of natural resources translates into decent schools, housing, water, electricity and provision of quality healthcare for their communities. The advice was given at a dissemination workshop on the 2010-2011 Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative report. Mahmoud Mohamed Nuruddin has more.
Ghana is one of the developing countries that depend largely on the extractive industry. The discovery of oil and gas also raises greater expectations among Ghanaians. According to Franklin Ashiade, who spoke on behalf of the Deputy Minister for Finance, these expectations can only be effectively managed when there is an enhancement in transparency and accountability by full disclosure of what government receives from the extractive industries. He said Ghana took steps to sign onto the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative in 2003 to improve transparency and accountability in the sector. He challenged district assemblies in mining areas to demonstrate fiscal accountability and transparency in all revenue mobilization and expenditure.
While extractive resources such as minerals and oil and gas have provided immense growth for some countries, the reverse has been true for others. The latter is mainly due to the absence of effective governance benchmarks, weak institutional capacity, including management, and the lack of transparency. The outcome, including rent sinking and corruption, clearly retards progress and perpetuates poverty. As a country, we are challenged by the demands from our citizens to ensure that the exploitation of our natural resources translates into decent schools, housing, water, electricity, healthcare amenities, and for me, this is a fair request.
Franklin Ashiade added that government is working assiduously to ensure that enhanced revenues from natural resources are wisely managed. Deputy Ashanti Regional Minister Samuel Yaweduse expressed unhappiness with the continuous lack of development in mining communities.
Apart from the fact that most of the communities are deprived, such communities also continue to suffer from the adverse effects of mining. and ironically lacking tangible infrastructure such as potable water, health facilities, accessible roads, adequate educational facilities, and decent housing, not to mention the poor environmentally insanitary conditions.
All right, so you're watching the primetime news here on Joy News on Multi TV, and this evening the question I've been asking, I put the question on social media on Facebook, and the question is, if you happen to be, if you're a member of the panel of Supreme Court Justices to decide the fate of the MPP General Secretary Sir John, how would you proceed on his case? And I posted it about 16 minutes ago, and I have 56 comments so far. I'm going to be bringing you some of the comments pretty shortly. Immediately this is able to load. Okay, it says he did not say anything. Nana says he did not say anything. Forget. Abubakar says I would free him. Bagagnan says based on the law. Richmond says he would get the justice that he deserves. Ayijo says I will give him only 1 month. As in Sawam. Peter Kujo says let him explain what he meant, and if offensive, advise him. Al-Haji says Ghana is hanging for now. They should do something, not that of contempt. Kwame Kuma says he's orally fixated. I mean orally sarcastic. I would give him at least 3 months behind bars. We're having a lot of your comments coming in, and we will bring you as and when we have the time to bring you some more of the comments. But the General Secretaries of political parties have rejected the Ghana Integrity Initiative report, which says the parties are the second most corrupt institution in the country. According to them, the survey on the perception of citizens has no basis and seeks to erode the confidence in political parties with implications for the country's democracy.
Integrity Initiative that rated the political parties' corruption index report was released about a month ago. The survey also suggests corruption has worsened in the past 2 years, with the parties rated the second corrupt institution to the police. The general secretaries of the 4 main political parties, the NDC, NPP, CPP and PNC, however, rejected the claim in a joint statement.
We accept that greater anti-corruption actions are needed in all public decision-making, including better rules on lobbying and political financing, making public spending and contracting more transparent, and making public bodies more accountable to the people. What we refuse to accept is how corruption in the public sphere makes political parties as institutions corrupt, especially when there is no evidence to show so.
The GII report also notes monies and items given during political campaigns to influence voters constituted what respondents in the survey perceived as corruption. The General Secretaries, however, challenged the notion that a whole party would be perceived to be corrupt because of the conduct of a few individuals.
Very difficult to pin the sense of or some wrongdoing on the part of somebody else in those processes against the whole institution of the party, when indeed some of these things may not even be, we may not be privy to some of the things that, or how the monies are raised. But by and large, the monies that we at the center raise are not tainted with corruption.
If corruption you are talking about is, an aggregate of the conduct of various candidates and so on, or members of the party throughout, then I'm afraid everybody in Ghana belongs to a political party.
The 4 political parties with their representation in Parliament are calling on the public to dismiss the report since it lacked merit and its outcome was not representative enough of the city's population.
Up next, we bring you business news.
Good evening and welcome to the Business Report with me, Parkwiti Asari. In our first story, government has indicated it is contemplating issuing another Eurobond to solely finance infrastructure projects of some power companies. The country last month successfully raised $1 billion from the international capital market. According to managers of the economy, this has paved way for more Eurobonds to be issued. Finance Minister said Tekbe tells Joy Business they might, however, issue only $250 million this time around. Now, at a time when most of the power companies like the Volta River Authority and the ECG are having challenges in raising the necessary funds for expansion and improving energy supply, this move by government might be good news for not only the companies but the utility consumers. Meanwhile, the finance minister says that investments to be made with proceeds from the second Eurobond should be able to refinance the loan. Economist Dr. Joe Abe is asking government to publish a detailed report on the Eurobond. According to him, they should give the public a detailed account on how the proceeds were raised, the spending plans, and the cost to the country. Now, government has already given a summary report on the bond and also held a news conference to outline some areas the funds will be directed. But Dr. Abe tells Joy Business more needs to be done for maximum transparency and accountability. He adds that it is not enough for managers of the economy to be excited that the bond was oversubscribed. Minister for Transport, Jifa Ativo, has denied reports that Tema Shipyard has been handed over to Tullow Oil. Addressing a news journalist at a news conference at the press series, she also said there was no proposal for the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority to manage the shipyard.
The Minister for Transport, Jifa Ativo, categorically stated the Tema Shipyard will not be sold to Tullow Oil. Jifa Ativo was addressing journalists at the Meet the Press series in Accra. She hinted the construction of a second floating production, storage and offtake vessel as part of the local content requirements.
I have the Tullow document before me. As part of the local content that is being worked on, the energy sector has signed an agreement to build a second FPSO. And as part of the local content requirement, a component of the FPSO is to be built in Ghana. They look around and identified the shipyard as a place that they can improve upon and build this component. They are to construct deck stools, which will start in October this year. Suction piles also are to be constructed. These are the two main things that are supposed to construct here. We are not handing over shipyard to Tullow. They will be there for 2 years to do their work. When they finish, they will come back as clients to shipyard for whatever services they require from the shipyard. So I want to state categorically clear that government has not handed over shipyard to Tullow, and that Tullow's request is to meet the local content demand for building a component of the FPSO from the Tema shipyard.
Jifa Ativo also said the Transport Ministry has received a petition from farmers along the Volta Lake on the work of the Canadian firm removing tree stumps in the lake.
That's it for the business news. My name is Pakwesi Asari.
Time for the very latest of the world of sports. The Black Stars had a full house during their final training session in Istanbul as the 5 remaining players joined the team ahead of tomorrow's friendly against Turkey. Captain Asamoah Gyan and the quartet of Rabiu Mohammed, Rashid Samaila, Mohamed Awal and goalkeeper Fatal Dawda reported to camp this morning to swell the number of players in camp to 19. The coach announced 21 players for camp, but Emmanuel Banahene and Albert Adoma withdrew for various reasons. The long journey from South Africa to Istanbul delayed the arrival of Rashid Samaila, Mohamed Awal and goalkeeper Fatal Dawda, who all play in the Southern African country. The training session rounded up the team's preparations for the friendly against Turkey at the Atatürk Olympic Stadium in Istanbul tomorrow. The Ghana League Clubs Association has cancelled the 2013 edition of the GACA Top 4 competition. The annual tournament, which has been cancelled for the second year running, was originally scheduled to take place from September 1 to 22. But following the insistence of the Ghana Football Association to begin the Premier League on September 15, the tournament had since been rescheduled for September 1 to 11. GACA have confirmed to Joy Sports the decision was reached due to a short notice to teams and difficulties in securing sponsorships for the competition. This year's competition would have been contested by league champions Asante Kotoko, Brecum Chelsea, Mediama SC and Ebuswan Dwarfs. Newly crowned IBF Intercontinental Super Featherweight Champion Emmanuel Gameboy Tego and his trainers touched down this afternoon at the Kotoka International Airport after a successful bout in the United States over the weekend. Tego, who displayed one of his best performances by recording a technical knockout over Geraldo Robles, is billed for Roman Martinez soon. Joy Sports cameras met the team on arrival and caught up with manager Bafo Jan and Gameboy Tego. All right, that'll be all for sports tonight. My name is George Adi Jr. Do have a great.
Right, we're going back to our Facebook wall to read some of the comments that you have sent in. We're having like 123 comments coming in so far. Vincent Adams says, look, he's no different from the other guys. Well, and the question, let me go back to the question that I had. If you were a member of the panel of Supreme Court justices to decide the fate of the MPP General Secretary, Sir John, how would you proceed on his case? So Vincent says, look, he's no different from the others. No pleadings will set him free. As he said, no one is above the law. So let's see what happens tomorrow, but I think he should be punished. Bernard says, 3 weeks at and so on. Dima says, 5 years in person. With hard labor. Adabu says, this man cry, jail him. Vincent says, look, well, Vincent has repeated what he said earlier. Nadiatu says he should be freed. Ernest says, for him being a lawyer, I will have no mercy for Sir John. 3 months is good for him. Joseph says, give him some hot lashes. Well, Akutu says, why not sentence him for 1 month so that he can embark on prison tour and have first-hand experience about what pertains in our prisons so that he can advise the president on new reforms to give new faces to our prisons. So we have lots of your comments coming in. Obviously, I can't read all of your comments, but still in a related development in Kumasi, a vigil is being held to show solidarity with the MPP General Secretary who's supposed to be appearing before the Supreme Court justices tomorrow, hearing the election petition. What we're seeing right now is just empty chairs at the MPP headquarters in Kumasi. The vigil hasn't started. We're expecting it to start a little later, and we'll certainly bring you that story. Okay, apparently we've been speaking to one of the officials there, so let's hear what he has to say about this vigil.
Yeah, this is a program meant for everybody, MPP sympathizers and supporters, all Ghanaians, peace-loving Ghanaians. People want to see the well of the nation are all invited, and we're not restricting it to a few of us. That's why we're here, and we want to pray for our party leadership, especially Lawyer Uso Friye and those who are going to court tomorrow, so that God will give them the wisdom of Solomon so that they can speak well. Then also to the justices of the Supreme Court, the nation's future depends on the ruling that will come out from the Supreme Court. So if we're looking at them, then we need to also pray for them so they also get the wisdom to give a ruling that is justified by all of them.
All right, up next is Showbiz. Now, remember the dancehall artist who surfaced recently claiming to be the composer of 3 of Kaki's hit dancehall tracks? His name is Lingua Cat. Well, it turns out the king of Danstedam, as he prefers to be known, was right after all, except that he did not compose all 3 songs.
Me just come again, me just come again, me just come again, me just come again, me just come again.
About a month ago, Showbiz brought you the story of a Dancerman-based dancehall artist who felt slighted by the management team of the 2013 Best Dancehall Artist, Kaki. Lingua Cat, known in real life as Kweko Bengamwako, said although he composed 3 of Kaki's hit songs, DC Turn Up, Top Girl and Too Much, he is not credited for his works.
I even have songs that Kaki's not already brought it out because of the grudge that built up quickly before she could even come up with the 4th one, right? Because I realized that they were ignoring me and going ahead on platforms, and you hear, oh, who wrote a song for you? Samini and Stoneboy. And I'm like, wow, I coach you, I actually direct you with your producer, John Master J, in the studio, sit by you 24 hours to make sure you have the cut that when it comes out there, everybody's loving you.
Well, Showbiz caught up with Kaki at the recording of Channel O's O News Live at the Silver Star Terrace and asked her if indeed Lingua Cat was the brain behind 3 of her hit songs.
Lingua Cat wrote DC Turn Up, Top Girl, yeah, and a little portion of Too Much. Too Much was written by the Thongs in dancehall. It was not written just by Lingua Cat, it was also written by Samini, Stoneboy. So even GMJ wrote some. So I don't know why he wants to own that, but it's all good. I mean, in life, so big ups. I'm very grateful, and I still mention his name, so I don't know why.
He says you don't appreciate him.
It's okay, like to me, I always say that everyone is subjected to his or her opinion, so I respect his opinion. I mean, probably the time I'm mentioning his name, he's not listening, so it's okay.
Unfortunately, Kaki will not comment any further on the issue. So even though Kaki and her team had been silent on the matter for some time, at least now the truth is out. And well, I guess that goes to say that there's an iota of truth, at least, in every rumor.
Now, celebrity fashion is often flamboyant, almost literally in your face, but that's usually for the daring females who want to show they are larger than life. That of the males is often not so outrageous, but that cannot be said about the multiple award-winning Nigerian TV host Denrele Edun. So what really inspires a sense of style, Showbiz has been finding out.
Alright guys, 3, 2, 1 action. My name is Derele and I'm coming to you live from Dubai. Yes, honestly, I always seem to be everywhere.
Born to a Yoruba father and Indian Mauritius mother, Denrele Edun, one of Nigeria's most popular television presenters across the continent, describes himself on his Twitter page as being born without a stop button. Well, that perhaps explains why the Channel O VJ further says on Twitter, and I quote, "Denrele stalks into a room and your jaw literally drops." That Denrele has a unique fashion style and personality is undisputed. But what inspires his sense of style?
I'll tell you, well, my clothes are an extension of my personality, like an expression of my individuality. I don't give a hoot what people say or think about me. I do what I want to do. Look in the mirror and I say to myself, you are who you are. I don't give a hoot, but I think for me it's about living life, really, and expressing myself to the fullest.
Well, his style has been described variedly as punk and fun. But do the mixed reviews about his style depress him or inspire him to do something crazier than what he has already done?
Well, I never really feel down, and I'll tell you why, because, I always look for positivity, negativity. I'm always excited, There are times when I almost have those moments because I'm human, but I say, no, I snap out. I look for something to do. Go out, run on the streets naked, scream, look for trouble, But I think my clothes just bring out that, essence of fun and positivity that I reflect.
Well, from all indications, Denrele will not be altering the tone of his avant-garde couture anytime soon. So if you're one of those bothered by his dressing, you might just try getting used to it. And oh, by the way, Denrele has apologized for harassing Ghanaian actress Lydia Forson on stage at the recording of O News Live at the weekend. He rendered the apology via his Twitter page, and Lydia has since accepted the apology.
Okay, that's it for Showbiz. An apology accepted. A quick run through our headlines before we go. MPP General Secretary, cited for contemptuous remarks about election petition, has urged supporters to remain calm even as he appears tomorrow. Meanwhile, party general secretaries have rejected the number 2 ranking on the Corruption Perception Index, insisting it undermines confidence in the country's democracy. Independent Broadcasters Association have vowed to sanction members who violate the ethics by allowing hate speech and insults. The police have intensified their presence in the central region town, where clashes with townsfolk over illegal mining led to a jailbreak and the death of 2 persons. And district assemblies have been challenged to ensure the communities have something to show for the resources that are exploited. That's it. For more news, log on to myjoyonline.com. My name is Israel. Have a good evening.